Well, good morning, everybody. Happy middle of the week. Happy lunch hour. We are excited back with you again today. Shannon with the Albuquerque Espado Chamber, right in the middle of our 6-week series with the city of Albuquerque, where we get to meet the people behind the scenes, the little elves, the little Oz's behind the curtain, if you will. What is happening at the city? Oh my goodness, all the departments. Who are the key players? What do they do? How do they help the community and small business? And that's what we're in the middle of. And we're so excited today. We have another great group of ladies that are going to share with us their mission and what they do inside of our beautiful Duke City. And before we get to that, I just want to, as always, say a huge thank you and shout out to the city of Albuquerque for their continued partnership and support of what we do here at the Hispano Chamber as we celebrate our 46th year coming up now shortly. And also want to give a shout out to the mayor's office, who has been instrumental in how do we get the word out? How do we share with the community? Because I think sometimes we see maybe the mayor, we don't always see what's happening with all the other departments. And this is an effort that we hope we get to do on an annual basis, where we get to get a refresher and meet the departments that really move our city forward and help us with those really hard to answer questions and connections that we need to make as small business owners. So let's just get right into it. An hour is never enough. So I hope you have your sack lunch and your favorite beverage, because we're going to have some fun today in getting to know these departments. So I'm going to just go in the order as you are on my screen. And let's just start with your name, your department, and what you do. And once we introduce everybody, let's start talking about some fun stuff. So Renee, you are up first.
Hey, well, thank you, Shannon, and really happy to be here today. Renee Martinez, and I'm the director of the Department of Finance and Administrative Services, and we'll talk about what that is and what that contains later. I've been in that role since April of 2019, came in as the deputy for about a year and a half, and then took on the director role, and just very pleased to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Welcome. Thanks, Renee. Next, we have Haley.
Hi, my name is Haley Kadish, and I am the city's Performance and Innovation Officer. I do a lot of work within our city to improve city operations, but I'm also over our Buy Local initiative and our Gender Pay Equity initiative. So I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about those today.
That is something totally new. I'm so excited to hear about that. And it may not be new, but it's definitely new to me. So I'm excited to hear about it. And Jennifer, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer. I'm the city's Chief Procurement Officer. The purchasing division is in the Department of Finance and Administrative Services. So Renee is my director. And then we work very closely with Haley on a lot of the procurement reform efforts that have gone on in the past year. So we're all have worked together for a while.
So, the reason I'm so excited about today's conversation, because procurement is such a huge part of what we do at all levels here at the chamber, but obviously getting to know this for the city. And when we say, hey, department, as we in prep for these, these conversations, hey, specific department, if you have something specific geared towards small business, let's talk about that. Let's really pull that out. So when they said procurement, I was like, oh, the whole hour is geared to small business. What you guys do. So I'm really excited about that. So Renee, I kind of just want to start with you. Let's talk a little bit about the mission of the department and a little bit about some of the maybe initiatives that you do and just, like I know procurement falls under that. So tell us a little bit about the department.
Yeah. So just starting with our mission. So we strive to provide quality and trustworthy service with a focus on customers and continuous improvement. The city finances are important to everyone in our community, of course. And so trustworthy is really important, and fairness and ethics. So we're all, of course, about that. Our key services really are pretty broad. Financial accounting, really, getting things paid, bills paid for our vendors, as well as actually receiving payments, fees and fines and so forth. We also have our budget. We have payroll, so we keep the city workforce paid and employed, and we've been really pleased to be able to do that ever since the pandemic, we have not had any furloughs or layoffs. So we've managed our finances well so that we keep our employees employed and doing all the good work for the city. Purchasing is a key division. Risk management, which is, kind of can be a nebulous word, but it's about employee safety. It's about employee assistance for mental health services. It also is any claim against the city, what we call tort claims, we handle as well as workers' compensation. We have our treasury, which collects our taxes and makes investments so that the money that we have, we actually can make money off of when it's not being used to provide services. We also manage our fleet, our vehicles. So all the city vehicles you see out there running around, they of course need to be maintained and repaired and replaced. And so we have a division of fleet management, and we actually have a big warehouse as well. And that warehouse has supplies that are commonly used by all of our departments. Think about snow melt for the winter, your shovels, your gloves. They played a huge role during the pandemic to provide PPE to all of our workforce. And then Haley's group, the Performance and Innovation Office, also report into our department. So key customers are, of course, our city departments. We work with them every day, every minute, almost every second, right? Yep. Especially purchasing. And of course, our vendors, purchasing department, our accounts payable department works with vendors, and Haley with the local buy local initiatives. And of course, just the public that needs to be able to feel comfortable that our budget reflects the needs of the community, that we spend money wisely, and that we follow all of the important rules and regulations and get our financial reports out. Key personnel, in addition to Haley and Jennifer, is our city treasurer, Celia Aguilera. She's been in that role for a very long time and helps us with bond issues and tax collections. Our city investment officer, and our city controller, Donna Sandoval, and our budget officer, Lawrence Davis. So those are some of the other key people. I consider every staff member, of course, key because they really do all the work.
So this is like a very robust department. I mean, my notes are like a mile long already. It's like, wow, so much to talk about and so much to break down. And before we do, because I would have never thought about all this inside of the finance and administrative services. I mean, you wouldn't think of like fleet management. Right. I wasn't really thinking about tort claims. Like those are, I guess in my mind, I would have thought about those elsewhere. So we'll break some of those down, but just to bring everybody into the conversation, Haley, I know that you have a very specific position, a very specific job. So let's talk just a minute about what you do and the purpose of your role.
Sure. Sorry, I'm trying to escape construction noise, so I move spaces. Hopefully it doesn't.
Oh, wait, dogs barking.
I apologize if you hear.
We got this.
So we do a lot of internal process improvement projects, but a big part of our work is the city's Buy Local initiative. So that initiative really aims to keep the money that the city spends on goods and services as local as possible. And we have a very specific definition of local in the city. You need to be headquartered within the city or Bernalillo County to be considered local by our standards. We do also recognize, though, firms and organizations that are actually operating local as well. So we do kind of capture some of that nuance and try to keep spend here in order to help our economy. And we do pretty well at this. We spend in a typical year 75% to 80% of the money that we spend on goods and services, which is over $400 million a year. We keep that with businesses that operate within the city, which is great, but still room to improve. And so that's a lot of the work that we do, is trying to shift spend towards local vendors. The Pay Equity Initiative it's actually been around since, I want to say 2015. I mean, it definitely was, I wasn't here when it launched, but it's focused on educating and bringing awareness to vendors about how they pay their employees and if they're paying equitably. And then the other focus of that initiative is to reward vendors that do pay equitably. And so we have a reporting form that businesses have to complete if they're bidding or proposing on any of the projects with the city. And so I'm happy to talk more about that as well. There might be some questions later, but that's really where my work overlaps a lot with Jennifer on the Gender Pay Equity Initiative.
Wow. Okay. Again, more great stuff. That's why this has been such a great series, meeting everybody, because we're really getting to know all the different places inside the city and the really cool little unique initiatives like the gender equal pay fee. I mean, that's just great. I want to talk more about that, but also want to bring Jennifer in because purchasing is such a huge part. And I know that most people out there watching or that are going to end up watching this are going to know what purchasing is and what you do. But let's talk about that in a little more specific and maybe give us an idea of the crazy, purchasing. We always say people go, oh, I just don't have anything the city wants, but I think you'd be surprised. The city probably buys everything. So we'd love to hear from you, Jennifer, about that.
So we run the central purchasing office, which means we handle the goods, services, and some of the on-call construction. The more brick and mortar construction is in our Department of Municipal, I always say affairs, but they always correct me. The municipal, what is it? Municipal Development Department. Yeah. So they handle that. And then our Family and Community Services Department handles the social services agreements, which come out and, handle like the homeless, substance abuse, that kind of thing in the city. So those two are procured outside of us, but we do everything else. So we buy everything from grass seed to asphalt to consultant services to fixing a roof, everything that you could think of. We have probably, I always tell folks, you can buy anything in the city. I mean, legal stuff, but you could buy anything in the city. There is a procurement methodology for it. We have probably over close to 40 different ways in our purchasing ordinance to buy stuff, some of which are competitive and some of which are don't lend themselves to being competed. Some of them are small purchases, and the small purchases and the professional services are a lot of where we overlap with Haley's division as well, because those are the areas that we look more into buying local from. We focus in that area, but we also have small and local preferences that we apply to our competitive solicitations as well. So those are some of the areas that we look into when we're looking at the local business. So we are very, very busy. Our fiscal year end is coming up. As you can see, I'm going to try to point to the right way. It's like being in a mirror. We have I don't know, you want me to talk about the virtual vendor workshop that's coming up, or is that later?
We can absolutely talk about it. As a matter of fact, if you guys are watching, you notice that these ladies have this really cool background. So I was like, hey, how do I get one of those? And so the conversation came up about this really great initiative and event they have coming up. So please, let's talk about it.
So we actually put one of these on. It was probably a month and a half or so ago, and we got a huge turnout. And so we have brought it back by popular demand. And it really just, talks about things like, how do you transact business with the city? What does it mean to work with us? How do you submit invoices? How do you get paid? What are your resources to help you in the city? So we have a big panel and we have room for questions at the end. So May 6, 9 a.m. It is virtual. We have about 322 people registered right now. Our capacity is 500. So if you would like to join us, you do need to get registered. So Shannon, what I can do is following this meeting, I can email you the registration information. So you can be a point of sharing that with folks who are here today that might want to join us in May. And then following this one, we're probably going to break it out into brown bag lunches, virtual for now, and just have topics that we just, we announce it on our website, so you can go in and we'll show you where in the website that we'll have the announcements of the different brown bags coming up, so you can bring your questions. It's really, we really like it to be interactive. I mean, we have information to share, but it's always helpful for when you have a networked group for questions that come up, because people have ways that they've dealt with things that share with other people, and it tends to be very helpful.
the workshop really demystifies our procurement process. So if a business is saying, well, how do I work with the city? Then the workshop can really tell you about, how do we solicit for bids? What kind of things do we purchase? If you're successful getting work with us, then how do we pay you? What are your responsibilities? What are our responsibilities? So it really does break things down well, so that I think coming out of the workshop, people are a little bit more comfortable. Like, oh, this is not so bad.
We're
It's not so daunting.
We're nice. And we have quarterly forecasts too, because so you can, when you go onto the purchasing website, you can see what's coming up to be prepared to bid on stuff.
Well, there's so much to say about purchasing and procurement. One of the big initiatives we've had here at the Chamber for the last couple of years has been teaching people about procurement. We have a biannual procurement series, and then of course our annual procurement summit, which encompasses federal, state, local, obviously the city. And then, there is anchor institutions such as the hospitals and the universities that purchase as well. So it's really interesting when you're able to get a business that's willing to listen to the education side of how it works. So to have 300 and some people already registered, you've already previously done it, and you still have slots open is really impressive. It shows that Albuquerque and the citizens and the small business owners are ready to, hey, I want to learn how to take a piece of the pie. And I think what Haley is talking about, this buy local initiative, is so important. So here is the question. Let's say that, with over 40, I believe you said, ways that you can purchase with the city. I know that there's the occasional where you need something really kind of strange, it's kind of off the wall, and can we procure it locally? Because we don't know if somebody has it locally. So what is it, like a sole source? So let's talk about, how do you go about sourcing to find somebody in the city to do that? Or do you search if there's not, and then you go outside the city? So how does that work a little bit, the buy local?
So, go ahead, Haley.
Whoever, yeah.
So I do think that I'm a good touch point, like first point of contact for folks in the city, or for vendors interested in doing business with the city. I know that the 40 procurement methods, that could be a little bit daunting, and often they relate to dollar threshold. So it sort of depends on how much we would be spending as a city on that good or service, and that can kick us into different types of the procurement methods. But really, I think I'm a good first point of contact. I can share contact information from vendors with departments that buy that good or service, because we've done a lot of spend analysis of what types of things are we buying. If it's something totally new, that's actually something we're exploring the potential of doing. I believe it's called a reverse vendor fair, where the city can kind of share, this is what we need and this is what we can't get locally, and that type of thing. And then businesses can kind of come see where we're looking, but we haven't yet been able to find a vendor to provide it. So that'll be cool. And I'll definitely keep the chamber involved and up to date as we start to plan that out. But I really do think that our office can be a good first point of contact, because it can be daunting to navigate the city. There are a lot of times where a vendor reaches out, and if I find out as I look through our city spend that we're buying that good or service from a not local vendor, that's a big part of our initiative. We try to help departments to shift their own spend by putting data about what they're not buying local, or having them share with amongst themselves, hey, I use a local vendor for this, you can too, kind of thing. But then a big part of it is actually us going in and trying to help shift the spend citywide. So a lot of contracts within the city, different departments can buy off of those various contracts. So that's a really great way to get a local vendor into the city, especially with things that maybe go through, say, like our warehouse or a various contract that all departments might be able to access. So I'm happy to share my contact information. We're definitely a good first stop, and we can answer a lot of those questions. And then of course we can then connect with purchasing and connect that business with purchasing.
So for the vendor workshop, what is the time frame, and just what is some of the topics you will all cover during that time?
So it starts at 9 and ends at noon.
Okay.
And do I have an agenda here? No, that would have been a good thing to have.
I could have said something, but
I have the agenda on the email.
Okay.
So it's basically what Renee said. We're going to start out with introducing you to who the city is, who the departments are, because it is centralized purchasing, but the departments have a lot of discretion on what they want to buy.
That
And
was my
so
question.
it's not, and really with the 40 different ways to buy, you guys really don't need to worry about that. I worry about how we procure it, and Haley and I will, talk about that kind of thing. But I just said that because it is really a flexible document. It isn't always just competitive. So we talk about that. How do you know who's in the city and what do they do and what are all the different departments? What does purchasing do? What does accounting do? Because a lot of times people look at the payment methodology and the procurement methodology as kind of the same thing. They're intertwined, but they're separate. And so if you have a purchasing question or issue, it might be different than a payment question or issue. So we have members of both accounting and purchasing all in a panel to discuss that. We have our person who's the lead in our competitive solicitation, walking through how to register with Bonfire, which is our e-procurement system, and then showing you some of the screens in there so you're familiar with what it looks like to go in, register, look at the solicitation documents, put your proposal or bid in, and how we go through that process, where to find our quarterly forecasts, and then how to know some of the reminders for our partners, the vendors that partner with the city for goods and services, about making sure you have a PO before you provide goods or services to us, making sure you have a full PO to put on your invoices, information from accounting about what delays your payment and what you can do to help us make sure that you get paid timely, because that's important for our it's important for all vendors, but it's important for some of the small and local vendors. We're going to, talk a little bit more about the pay equity and the buy local initiative. And we're also going to pull in this time a new person from our small business office here at the city. His name is David Sayers. And he asked us whether we talked about him, and we do talk about him, but I thought maybe he wants to talk about him. So he's going to come and tell you about, if you're a small business, what resources the city has to help you. So it's kind of from the start, how you start from the purchase through the process, some of our initiatives, and ending with making sure you get paid and the services delivered or good delivery.
The only thing I would add is, because I actually had the agenda in front of me.
Oh, good. Did I do okay?
You did great. So really the life cycle of doing business with us, right? From how do you know we need something? Where do you go to say, oh, we're looking for someone to provide, gloves, to, all right, how do you submit your bid? How do you get notice that you've won something? How do you get set up so that you can invoice us? How do you check on the status of your invoice? What are the laws that govern procurement? That's also helpful. So you just kind of know right away, what that up front. So really, of course, encourage people who want to do business with us to attend one of these workshops.
So I noticed that you said you had done one earlier, and I'm not sure if I missed it or if we talked about it. Has this been happening along? Is this something you've recently started? And how often will you be doing them for those that say can't attend May 6th? Oh, and I asked for two reasons. Number one, we've been doing, like I said, a lot in the procurement sector for a while here at the chamber. And yes, the city always comes on, they do a nice 10, 15 minute, how do you do business? But this is very specific. And for those small businesses who are maybe not ready for federal contracting, or they're maybe just want to get their feet wet, maybe they just want to work within the city. This would be so good for them to get more specific information than just a 15 or whatever minute it happens to be kind of overview. So it would be awesome to know how we can partner moving forward and send our businesses here at the chamber to you to be able to do that training. Or is this like a one-time thing?
So I've been with the city since 2014, and I have been in the purchasing division for that long. And I don't remember us having put this together during that time. I know before then they were having them. So this is really the one that we just had, was the first time, and we meant to do it a lot earlier, but then that whole thing with the virus last year. So yeah, so it kind of pushed us back. We would have been doing this. We would have done it while, at least a year, more than a year ago. So we didn't even know we were going to have this second one on May 6th because we had no idea that the demand would be what it was. We should have figured it out if we hadn't had one in a while, that, hey, people are missing seeing you guys and really want to know a little bit more about you and how we can work together. So, but yeah, the demand was so high, it filled up, and then people were like, yeah, we couldn't get in. We didn't have enough time to plan. So this second one was kind of ad hoc. We didn't really, we didn't really commit, but we gave people a little bit more time to set some time aside in their schedules. And so this may be, if we get filled to the max and get the demand for it, we may put this 3-hour one on one more time.
Okay.
But we do have it.
No, because we want to help get the word out.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely do that. It's heading to fiscal year end, and we're doing a big software program implementation. So it's getting probably not so much towards the end of the fiscal year, but we'll definitely be in touch, and we'll definitely coordinate with you on the brown bags, because we want to hear from folks too. We'll need ideas for the brown bags. I don't want to just pump out information that's not helpful. I want to know, what's the pain points, or what would you like to hear more about? Who would you like for us to bring on the panel for you to talk to?
That's huge, because that's buy-in from the community and the small businesses. They're going to get to hear the topics and the speakers and the panelists that they want to hear from. It's really going to help them with their growing and scaling of their business. So that's huge, to get the buy-in of the community. So I know that I would appreciate that if I was a business owner. So I think that's fantastic. And like I said, we're always, we know that for a fact that procurement at any level really can put dollars into your business, which in turn puts dollars into the community. So if we can teach people that procurement is not a scary word, it's not an ugly word. It might be a little daunting. It could be a little overwhelming at times. There's certain things you have to be prepared for, but sometimes it's as simple as, you like somebody mentioned, you want to buy grass seeds, and you might happen to have a garden green business, and you're like, hey, I could do that. Let me put a price in. Let me watch for bids when they're seeding and see if I can do that. Again, things that people don't think of when it comes to what does the city buy, they're not thinking at that level. I have to ask, and not that you know the answer, but has there been just something really maybe crazy off the wall? Like, what is something that has come to you that you're like, wow, we got to find that, or I didn't know what to do with that, or what have you?
Well, we usually, so things come very unique from some departments. Like our Department of Cultural Services has to feed exotic animals out at the zoo. So you can imagine what those purchases are like.
In fact, I had to approve a purchase of snake venom from Africa because of our biopark has animals that could buy. So that was the most exotic purchase that I've had been part of.
And we chartered penguins in for, because they can't be on the plane that long. They are temperature controlled. So the penguin exhibit. We have something called an elephant consultant. I really actually don't know what that is, but one of our ERP consultants loves to bring up the elephant consultant. But, there's very specialized habitats. We have consultants that come in for the Japanese garden to make sure that it's, that all is authentic.
Beautiful.
We buy fire trucks. We buy helicopters. We buy, and everything has its own special little thing to it about, how the specs are developed and who's involved and what's it for. But, you really learn a lot about a particular thing when you have to buy it. Like, I know what an matriculated bus is. I know what it means when a bus kneels. And so, a little bit about a lot of these products, but so I would say there's some that are more difficult to procure because there may be a particular somebody that somebody wants and we have to compete it, but it's taxpayer dollars. And so we really have a lot of tight ethics and procurement rules, and it's fine. Like I said, you can buy it. It's just a matter of, how we fit it properly in our rules. So I think that sometimes making sure we get stuff in a timely manner, and what we actually need here, like I said, for the penguins, we had to really work after hours chartering a plane to get them here and well. So I think it's more like that. It's really a case by case, but we always work it out. And Renee is right there with me, as hearing me out about how are we going to get this? We talk it through with departments, and we're pretty successful in getting even the difficult ones.
So this is a lesson to the small businesses out there. If you have snake venom, if you
We
have
need it.
build helicopters, don't panic. The city may need your services or your products. So you definitely want to make this inquiry, attend this virtual workshop on May 6th, and stay tuned. You can't for the ones coming up, but this is a really great way to get in and understand what you do. Just because you do food, you may not think the city buys food. They do. You may not know consulting services. Oh, I consult. Hey, they do consulting services contracts. So just get your name in there, fill it out, become part of the system as far as putting your name in and getting registered with the city. And then you can start getting those emails to bid and requests to bid and RFPs and all that fun stuff. So again, huge for our economic platform and the way that we develop economic development by getting your business involved at this level. So I think that is huge. I kind of want to head back over to Renee because there was so many different great things that the Finance and Administrative Services Department does. And so I kind of wanted to talk just about a few of those. So some of the interesting ones that I found was, fleet service and management, because the city has, I'm sure, a lot of vehicles. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because that's a large project to manage. I'm guessing there's people dedicated to taking care of just that.
Yeah, and just to be real clear, so in our department, we have what we call the white fleet versus the blue fleet, like right? So it's like your normal car, sedan, that we use for going from place to place, like our code enforcement officers, our administrative staff as they move around, and so with that, of course, comes relationships with car dealers to buy cars. We have a whole replacement schedule where we have a system called Fleet Focus that manages all the information about all our vehicles, how much fuel they're taking, how much maintenance they've had, what their mileage is. And so that feeds into their replacement cycle, their preventative maintenance cycle. So, we're giving notifications out to all of the vehicle owners about, okay, it's time to bring your just like your own car, come in for your maintenance, your 50,000 mile maintenance and so forth. Sometimes we do have to send out some of the repairs that we can't handle with our own mechanics. We go ahead and send out to repair shops. And so we have contracts with many repair shops and garages in the city to help us with the volume that we handle. So we have fleet mechanics, and we have parts workers, because we have our own kind of auto parts store there to handle things. We've got a tire shop. We repair trailers now. All the big truck,
You probably have paint and body. You probably have, there's a lot of,
yes.
I'm just thinking to myself, again, if you're an auto body, if you're a mechanic shop, if you, get on and register with the city, you never know when they're going to need services and how they go about purchasing those services. But they're not going to know you exist if you don't tell them. And I think that's a big lesson today. They need to know that you are out there and can handle, a few cars at a time, or fleets of cars, depending on what you do. So that would be really, really important to do. So again, that one kind of caught my attention because I thought that was super exciting. And so, something that small business owners, so it's interesting to see at the city level, then you have your small business owners, but I believe at both levels, at both the city level and small business, there has to be some sort of financial accountability for what you do. And since you're managing the finances of the city, I know we briefly talked about reporting and stuff like that. So I think this is kind of a great little topic because it also helps small business owners think, I need to be fiscally responsible for my business too, because you guys are fiscally responsible for a very large budget. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is the budget of the city and how does that work, and how does all of that come to play? And I just have to also ask the question, it was mentioned that, you know, the city stayed employed and there was no furloughs during COVID. That's amazing. And to me, that comes back to balancing the budget and making sure you stay within guidelines.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks for asking. So the city's budget surpassed $1 billion just 2 years ago. So the budget that we've actually proposed for the fiscal year that's going to start in July, that's fiscal year 2022, is $1.1 billion. And most of that, you know, 65% of that is in the general fund, which is the fund that is not restricted. It's used for most of the common things that we do. We have other funds like the Lodgers Tax Fund and the Risk Management Fund. Those are special funds that have restricted use. But the general fund is the one that really takes care of most of the things that we do. And so that's a big budget, obviously. And you know, that budget then is divided up by departments. The Department for Finance Administrative Services, we have 160 staff, and our offices mostly are at City Hall, but we actually then have our fleet and warehouse at Pinot Yards on the north side of town.
Yeah.
That's where you'll see a bunch of vehicles. And so our own budget for just our department is $75 million. The biggest budget is, not surprising, is the police department's budget. And then the fire department has a very large budget. But so, you know, that 1.1 billion is divided between all the departments. And then we budget at a level called the program level. So each department has programs, and, you know, depending on what, you know, Family and Community Services would have a program called Homeless Services, Housing Services would be another one, their community centers would be a program. And so that is where we appropriate a certain amount for those programs. And that's the level that the city council appropriates the budget at. So let's just give you kind of a big overview. Just to give you a comparison, like the Lodgers Tax Fund is $10 million of a $1.1 billion budget.
Sure. And breaking those down really makes a lot of sense. As I'm sitting here kind of thinking to myself and taking notes, there is some departments that have, like you're talking about, this budget based on program level, because some of them are very program heavy. You know, we had a great conversation with Family Services, you know, Animal Humane, or the Animal Services, cultural arts, like they have different events and services versus maybe somebody that's a smaller, they've got 10 people in their department. So of course it has to be fit for the budget. Now there is a lot of new departments within the city as well that have come along in this administration. And so those initiatives also have to be funded and helped along. For example, the buy local, I mean, that you might have to put a little money in that, but at the same time, that's really helping local small businesses do business with the city, which I think for a long time was something that was kind of, you know, hard. The city was doing business, but it wasn't always local. So with this initiative, that's a huge, huge turnaround for businesses in the city. And so, you know, shout out to your department for really making that a focus. So we hope that we can send you businesses to register to learn how to do business with the city. That's really, really big. You also talked about, you guys are the department that collects taxes and makes investments. That's big. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the investment side of it.
Well, sure. So Chris Daniel, he's our Chief Investment Officer. And so we have two portfolios of money that we invest in. We have a liquid portfolio that is there just in case that the city needs funds that haven't already been appropriated, if there's some emergency. And so that is, of course, invested into very safe short-term instruments. And then we have a core portfolio that's a longer term. And Chris is really the mastermind wizard behind how we make those investments and what kind of instruments we make those investments. But he's done such good work, and we do have an investment committee as well as a debt committee, and we make decisions about how, policies around investments, strategies around investments. We've made requests from the state and from the federal government to be able to invest in some other instruments that haven't been available to us. But we make somewhere, I think, where our investments have reaped somewhere between 10 and 12 million dollars over the last couple of years, just from those investments of our cash pool. And so that's a way that the city can make some money from its own money.
It's own money.
Yeah, which you want to do, right? That's what I want to do. If I have any extra money, I'll be able to put it into some
I think we all want to do it on a smaller level, but we all want to do the same thing. We want our money to make money for us. Well, you have to do that. That's the importance of continuing the cycle and growth. And if you have really, really good investments, it makes a big difference in your budget and how you spend dollars. So I think that's huge. I want to kind of talk about that little white elephant in the room that we've been addressing on every webinar, and it's called COVID is really what it is. And we've been asking the departments, how did they adjust, and what is it that they learned specifically? And the third question was, is there anything that you think moving forward that you'll continue as best practices that was a positive that came out of COVID? And the reason we asked that is because it's hard. It was a tough year for everybody worldwide. We get it. But there has been some really great creativity, really great ideas, and then really great best practices that people are now implementing to move forward that maybe, what is it, the necessity is the mother of all invention, that we never would have done if we didn't necessarily have to do it, So my favorite word here at the chamber, and I get, slapped on the wrist daily, is the word pivot. And I know everybody's tired of it, but when you're like on a trajectory going this way and then you come to a complete stop and you got to go the other way, you have to learn to pivot on your feet. So I'm really excited to hear what have you and the staff been doing in COVID, and how did you adjust quickly, and what are some of the things you're implementing moving forward?
Great, I'll start, and then I'm sure Jennifer and Haley will want to add some color to it. But we had a business continuity plan that had been updated, I believe, about 6 months before the pandemic started. And so we actually had a plan for, let's say, City Hall had to be closed because of a problem, or if we had like a flu pandemic, what would we do? So we had thought about all the ways that we would have to actually move our workforce to some other place in order to do work, and that we would need laptops, and we would need systems up and running in order for us to do that. And how we actually went through a test to say, could we do payroll from home? And we actually had done that a couple of months before the pandemic, which was very lucky. So then as we started hearing that we may have to move out of our offices, and this happened over probably 2 weeks, discussions with our chief administrative officer, our mayor, and the department directors, it started becoming really real. And we pretty much within a week had identified who would have to stay and work, like fleet and the warehouse, because we would still have cars that needed to be repaired and taken care of. And for the most part, though, for our department, we have a lot of knowledge workers and transactional workers that process invoices, that we would, we had to find all the laptops that were hiding in cabinets and get them out and get them to our IT department to make sure they were working. But, there was one day where we said, okay, you're staying, you're going. And by Monday, you need to leave the office and start working from home. And so we had probably, the first week was a little bit, identifying issues with equipment, or someone didn't have good internet access at their home in the East Mountains. But I would say I'm very impressed with our staff. No one complained, no one panicked. I think within a week we were operational. We ran a payroll, I think in our second week of the pandemic, with no problems. And really, we did not have a service disruption. It's really a testament to just people just understanding that we had to deal with the situation. We had done some upfront planning. I was probably a pretty big pest of the DTI, our technology department, on demands. They were very good. They got Zoom running for all the people that needed to conduct meetings. We talked a little bit before about, just how to have productive meetings in Zoom, and how to communicate with your team and your supervisors using other tools, technology tools. So we did very well. And I think the other thing and I think Jennifer can talk about this a little bit more. It's really accelerated our use of technology for like electronic signatures, as well as we've used some other systems to put all our documents online. And that's never going to go away again, because we won't go back. We have now adopted new ways of doing business. And I think all our customers, vendors, public also love it. So I think it just accelerated what we probably needed to do anyway in a very quick time frame.
It's amazing because I'm thinking of payroll, and do you know how many employees the city has off the top of your?
About 6,000 with all our seasonals, counting our seasonals.
So, wow, like 6,000 people didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a paycheck, continued to, and never got furloughed, and continued to find ways for them to work, distantly, or, at home, or whatever it was. It's truly impressive. It is really impressive. We have close to 30 employees, and we're just, doing that, trying to get that together. So 6,000 is crazy. And then kudos to the IT department, because that's everybody that from all the departments that needed their service. Yes, huge shout out to them, because that had to be absolutely crazy. But I feel like, just a big congratulations. And Haley, let's bring you back in on this. You probably had to make a few adjustments to figure out how to work through the last year plus now. And so, yeah, let's talk to you a bit about that.
I mean, the performance and innovation team was actually just completely repurposed during COVID. We were all COVID response. We're only just now starting to resume some of the projects that we were slated to complete, the process improvement projects we were ready to do. We had folks assigned to the Emergency Operations Center at the city. And so one of my employees worked for a couple months in one of the COVID safe hotels that was being set up, and he was a site manager, like totally different work from what he normally would do, but very needed at the time. So that was great. We also managed the $150 million that the city got through the CARES Act. And that was, I'm sure that Jennifer will comment too on what that was like. And with a lot of that money, the money was given out to businesses. So we had to quickly stand up grant programs that, you want to make sure you're giving money to legitimate businesses, but you also need to get it out quickly. So that was like a ton of work. And then we also captured a lot of the costs associated with the city's response to COVID through that. So that money was really a godsend for the city. But so that was work that we had never had to do before. And we sort of still are trying to wrap up and close up all of the reporting associated with that money. But we were really successful in spending it in the original amount of time, which was then later extended. So we've been totally repurposed. I do think the silver lining of COVID for me was electronic signatures, because I have been trying to get that going for years, and it happened in like 2 days. It was awesome.
It literally did.
We love DocuSign. We will never go back from DocuSign.
Hey, well, sometimes it takes a pandemic to make those emergency and much needed changes. I think that's hilarious that, everybody finds the one thing that has really worked for them, and DocuSign was your life. So now you get to have that and use that moving forward, which I think is the silver lining in all of it. Jennifer, okay, so procurement, talk about like purchasing. What were some of the things that you had to immediately go into action about, and what has continued to work moving forward for you?
I think one of the things we had to do was based on the continuity of operations plan. We had to tweak it just a little bit because it was something that we didn't expect to have the entire city at home. You know, businesses, people, everything like that. So we had to think about it. We also had to calm folks down about you're going to still be able to buy stuff. It's going to work just like it always did. We have an electronic PeopleSoft financial system. Everyone does that on their computer. We had already upgraded to an electronic procurement system. So people were not delivering big bunches of hard copy, or we were moving away from big bunches of hard copy proposals being brought to the city purchasing front desk. So we had already gotten most of the way there. But we were having a few dragging feet about not having papers in hand and signing contracts with wet signatures. So we were moving towards that. I think it was one of the recommendations in Haley's procurement reform, but it was not going as quickly. But I'll tell you, once we had begun, nobody's back in here on Monday, and it happened through the entire city very quickly. We had to develop, a new business process for it. But, the need was there, and it fell into place surprisingly well. And I think because it was so needed and wanted for so long that, we didn't skip a beat. Just like, we all went home, we put a sign on the door, closed for business, but not really. We, like Renee was saying, we found laptops and we borrowed 6 laptops from accounting. We sent people home with those. We were trying to switch out hard towers. We have a city refresh program, get people laptops at home. And, in the meantime, people have kids and, trying to be flexible with that, with our staff members. But I'm telling you, we really didn't miss a beat.
Well, Jennifer's being humble because this $150 million that we received, right? That translates into a high volume of purchases. Yeah. She did not have any additional staff. Her staff handled the purchase of PPE, the purchase of lots
emergency
of
hotels,
social service organizations to provide services and food. So she's being humble because her group probably handled, 25% higher volume than a normal year because of the CARES money and all the good things we did with that money and all the purchases that we made. And like I said, handled it well, no complaints, and received quite a lot of thanks and praise from the departments.
And have to handle it with not just care, but urgency as well, because you're in the middle of this crazy, like what is happening right now? We have to have a mask and we have to have this and then making sure your employees are safe, your staff, but at the same time, making sure that you're trying to use the buy local vendors. And wow, it's really amazing. So like I said at the very beginning, ladies, I knew an hour was not going to be enough time because we could go on and on and on. It's really been eye-opening to everything that you do as a department, as a team, that you come together to support the citizens and small businesses. So many small businesses involved in this department. It's so important. So as we begin to close up, I'd love to hear from each of you. What is something that you're just super proud of with your department and something that you can leave us with as a community about your department? And then also, what is the best way to contact you for the public? Renee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I've said it. I'm just super, proud of the whole department on how they handled themselves during this very difficult time and how they continue to focus on the customer and services. So just, I've already said that, and believe that they've done such a wonderful job. And it's a privilege to be able to lead them. And, my role is really to serve them and provide them the resources and support they need to be successful, and they are. So you can reach me at here. I don't know if you want us to give, what kind of information, but I think you just go on the website and find my name And my number, you'll get Lisa Lopez, my executive assistant, who helps me organize my calendar and my life. But we all will get back to any of you very quickly. That's just part of our customer service culture.
What is your backslash on the website? So I know it's cabq.gov/.
DFAS, I believe, DFAS.
DFAS. Okay. Yeah. And we've been telling everybody, once you log onto the page, you can get on there. There'll be a click to contact directors or key personnel, and you can ask questions. There's so many ways that you can do that. Yeah. So definitely we'll make sure that that is posted as well. Haley, same question. Somebody has something very specific. I noticed you put your email on there. Thank you. We'll share that. So email is probably the best way, and share with us, just like I said, as we close out the hour, just a little something about what you specifically do, what you're looking forward to, anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really proud of is that we just created this local spend dashboard, and it's actually linked with all of our live spend data. So it's updating constantly, and it allows departments to play with their own data and see where they're buying not local. They can see if other departments buy that local. So we just launched it, and as we work out sort of the kinks, we're going to spend some time playing in it internally, but I hope that eventually I can turn it around and open it to be external. And then ideally vendors can help me do the work that we need to do by figuring out, hey, I can provide that service and they don't have a local vendor that can do that. And then that can really help us move forward with a local vendor. So I'm looking forward to that in the future once we work out the kinks.
Wow, that truly is innovative, because you're literally saying in real time, hey, wait a minute, guys, this is what we got to do to be better, or we're really making our numbers here, we're really doing well here, or wow, this is like odd, how are we not here? And that's how you kind of work out the kinks. Wow, that's really creative. I love that idea. Jennifer, same with you. You know, however you want to close up, whatever you'd like to say.
Well, I was really proud of the folks that I work with in purchasing. You know, they really stepped up to the plate. Some of these folks are kids with kids, you know, to me anyway. And, you know, they handled it all in an amazing way, realized the importance of the show must go on. Regardless of what's going on outside, the show must go on. We've got, you know, need in the city, and your job is important. You know, we also had a lot of support from administration, which we couldn't do either. If Renee hadn't been, hey, we got to get a plan, we got to follow the plan, and everybody's got to, you know, keep to the plan and keep the city going. And I think that, you know, all together made us pretty successful.
You know, something to be said about leadership in times of crisis, and the way that people panic or adjust, or, you know, their leading style. And so just a huge kudos to all of the directors and the personnel that stepped up and said, we can get this done. We can continue to be a team, because I had not heard that in all of these webinars, that not one person got furloughed. And that is truly an amazing feat, to know that you're continuing to serve the staff, the employees, the people that make the city run, and be able to do it at that level is huge. It's something to be really proud of. So thank you guys so much for doing that. And our time has come to an end. I always say it, I'm so bummed I could go on and on. These conversations are so important. It's so great, not just to get to know those individuals that are running these departments and making these departments work, but it's important to know who they are, so that you know how you fit in with your small business and as a citizen of our beautiful city here, and where you can do the work and how you can help out. So that always leads me to the Choose One campaign. And really, in the end, what it comes down to is choose one. Choose one option. Volunteer, register with the city to do business, apply at the city for a position, a job, but
yes,
please get involved. And you can find all of that on the Choose One website, along with all the wonderful videos. Hispano was a big part of the Choose One campaign, and we're very proud of that. We hope you guys visit that soon. Huge shout out and a huge thank you to Renee, and Haley, and Jennifer. I've really enjoyed our time together, and I know for sure that this is a department that we will continue to do work close with and work better with, to make sure that we are making sure that you guys get the information in your hands to make those decisions. And don't forget about the virtual webinar workshop that they are having next Thursday, 9 to 12. I will make sure that gets into our, yeah, it's here somewhere. It's all over. We'll make sure it gets into our newsletter, and we'll make sure that we remind you all next week to log on and register. Thank you, everybody. Have a happy Wednesday, and we will see you again on Friday for 2 more departments. Let's see who's going to surprise us on Friday. You all have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.